One day, a sudden disaster swept across the entire Earth. They were not zombies, but a group of frantic aliens nicknamed Whitespikes. In the summer of 2048, alien monsters suddenly invaded Earth, and no one knew where they came from. Whitespikes specifically feed on humans, not only breeding rapidly but also possessing extreme combat power. In just 2 years, the entire Earth completely fell. Humanity was eaten until fewer than 500,000 remained. Seeing that civilization was about to end, humans successfully created a time machine. They wanted to travel to the past to seek help. Returning to Christmas in 2022, people were at home watching the World Cup final. A wormhole suddenly appeared in the center of the stadium. Immediately after, a group of fully armed soldiers stepped out of it. Everyone present and the viewers in front of the TV were all stunned. At this time, the soldiers signaled people not to panic and stated they were from the future. In 30 years, Earth will be invaded by alien monsters, and humanity is on the brink of extinction. They need help. With such a bizarre event suddenly happening, everyone was momentarily at a loss. Officials confirmed that these soldiers indeed came from the future. Subsequently, the whole world began building time travel machines and sending soldiers from various countries to the future to fight the alien invasion together. After a period of fighting, humanity still suffered heavy losses. Seeing that the number of soldiers was getting smaller, governments of various countries had to expand the scope and order the recruitment of civilians to fight. Dan was once a Marine and became a teacher after retiring. This day he was teaching a class and unexpectedly received information about military recruitment. Before setting off, he needed to report to a base. To avoid the grandfather paradox of time travel, only those who died before the alien invasion met the recruitment requirements. After testing, the instrument showed that he would die in 7 years. This perfectly met the conditions for traveling. Dan was confused and about to ask how he died. Suddenly, a sharp pain struck, and in a few seconds, a strange device appeared on his arm. The soldier told him this was a time travel bracelet with communication and tracking systems. After returning home, Dan told his wife this bad news. They both knew that this departure might likely be a final farewell. After saying goodbye to his wife and daughter and arriving at the assembly point, a group of civilians without combat experience was sent to the future front line. At this time, the base issued a red warning, and they had to leave immediately. Everyone gathered in the hall, and as a dazzling light flashed overhead, a huge wormhole formed instantly. Immediately, people were sucked into the sky one by one. But at this moment, the system issued an alarm because the output coordinates of the travel were incorrect. It was too late to terminate. The people traveling to the future fell rapidly from the sky like raindrops. The lucky ones fell into a rooftop pool and saved their lives, while the unlucky ones fell directly to their deaths. The entire travel team had not even seen an alien yet and almost faced total annihilation. Fortunately, Dan fell into the pool and escaped. The survivors looked at the sight before them in disbelief. The entire city was like hell, and the air was filled with the roars of monsters. Everyone felt fear. Whitespikes occupied the entire city, and humans could no longer stop them. The only way was to clear them out altogether. The military was going to carry out a carpet bombing. At this time, the communication system sent the commander's order. The travel team's current mission was to head to a nearby laboratory to execute a rescue plan. They had to rescue the trapped researchers. But when the group reached the destination, they found everyone had been slaughtered. This also meant that alien monsters were hidden in the building. At this time, the bombers also started moving and would reach the bombing point in 6 minutes. The commander ordered everyone to evacuate immediately and meet with the rescue convoy. Unexpectedly, an accident happened while they were going downstairs. The roar of a monster came faintly from the top of the building. Dan shone the flashlight over and saw the appearance of the alien monster. Everyone immediately fired towards the roof, but there was more than one. It was a group. The squad hurriedly retreated downstairs, and the alien creatures pursued relentlessly. A soldier tried to close the door but was knocked flying. Dan hurriedly fired his gun, but the monster almost ignored the firepower attack. Dan could only take out a fire axe and hack at the monster. At the critical moment, teammates arrived in time and finally eliminated one. Everyone fled the building. There were more and more alien creatures on the street. Human warplanes would arrive on the battlefield in 3 minutes. The travel team needed to stay away from the red smoke zone immediately. The monsters behind were chasing closely. Seeing the arrival of the rescue convoy, everyone cheered. But the next second, Whitespikes both in front and behind. The squad had been surrounded. They could only move forward while firing. Unfortunately, the number of monsters increased, and teammates suffered heavy casualties. The battle was still fierce. At this time, the warplanes had reached the battlefield and began dropping bombs on the ground. Fortunately, the travel team ran past the red smoke street block. However, the crisis was not resolved. A large number of monsters were quickly chasing in their direction. The bombing of the warplanes was not over yet. They needed to find cover in time, climb over fences, and pass through tunnels. Whitespikes followed closely behind. During the battle, people kept falling. Seeing the danger slowly approaching, the injured teammates gave up escaping. To buy more time for their teammates to escape, they chose to die with the monsters. Immediately, the warplanes dropped several bombs, and violent explosions unfolded in the city. The rest of the people successfully escaped the disaster. Dan woke up from unconsciousness and found himself in a military base. Here, he met the female commander and suddenly had a familiar feeling. When the other person said her name, Dan suddenly understood. It turned out the commander was actually his daughter as an adult. The daughter stated the current situation was very unfavorable for humans. They had only one last plan left, which was to lead a hunting team to the nest of the alien creatures. They needed to capture a female Whitespike alive to study a toxin that could kill them. Dan's task was to take this toxin back to the past through time travel. With the resources at that time, they would manufacture it in large quantities to prevent the disaster from happening. The hunting team was trying to capture a sedated Whitespike alive. Unexpectedly, they were met with its counterattack. Soldiers were killed and injured in an instant. The commander immediately went to support. Just as they were about to subdue it, the alien creature let out a roar. It turned out it was calling its own kind. Immediately after, countless Whitespikes attacked. Dan realized the danger and immediately rushed into the cave. At this time, the commander was also in great danger. Dan hurriedly grabbed its tail. Everyone put in their best effort and finally locked it in an iron cage. Then it was transported back to the base by helicopter. Unexpectedly, a large group of monsters suddenly rushed out. The helicopter crashed instantly. At the critical moment, Dan and his daughter could only escape by car. After a thrilling and intense battle, the two finally escaped. They arrived at a sea base, which was the final line of defense for humanity. The male Whitespikes were also successfully transported back here. The daughter immediately began testing the toxin configuration. This time, with live genes, the success rate of the experiment would be much higher. After countless mutation treatments, the computer showed a 100% matching index. They finally found the toxin that could kill Whitespikes, and at this moment, the tied-up Whitespike began to become restless. It woke up from anesthesia and then kept roaring as if calling its kind. At the same time, an alarm came from the base. Countless alien creatures broke through the outer defense line. They quickly climbed onto the base. Humans turned on the firepower and fired crazily. Unfortunately, the number was just too large. The final fortress was on the edge of falling. Dan and his daughter were about to take the toxin and escape by helicopter. That was the last hope for eliminating the alien creatures. Unexpectedly, the path was blocked. The two could only force their way out. Just as they were about to reach the helipad, the daughter was hit by an alien creature. That male Whitespike had already chased after them. They moved with difficulty towards the direction of the helicopter, but at this moment, an explosion occurred at the base. The helicopter also crashed along with it. They were suddenly filled with despair. At this time, Dan had less than 1 minute left. He would be automatically sent back to the past. The daughter had given up escaping. While she handed the toxin to Dan, the male Whitespike pulled her into the abyss. Dan wanted to pull his daughter, but it was too late. Waiting for her below were countless Whitespikes. Dan jumped down without hesitation. At this time, the travel time was up. He was sent back to the past. Only a few people from the entire travel team survived. When Dan woke up, he received devastating news. Due to the fall of the sea base, the travel devices at the two time points had disconnected. They could no longer go to the future. At the same time, people began to riot. For a war that had not yet happened, they lost relatives and friends. The whole world instantly fell into chaos. When Dan took the toxin to the high-level officials, the response he got was to give up treatment. Humanity could only silently wait for the alien creature invasion in 26 years. So, is everything over like this? With his wife's reminder, Dan suddenly thought of a problem. Humans had no idea where these alien creatures came from. Perhaps they had landed on Earth long ago. The next day he found several survivors of the travel team. He tested a claw of a Whitespike. The result obtained was that they came from the northern snow mountains of Russia. It is highly likely that Whitespikes came to Earth 1,000 years ago. The reason they only appeared in 2048 was that glacier melting caused them to wake up. So the travel team decided to go to the snow mountains of Russia to find out. Without government funding, Dan could only seek help from his old father who owned a plane. The group was ready to go and finally reached the destination. After detection, there was an extremely abnormal magnetic field here. Looking around, a huge snow pit appeared in front of everyone. After blasting, they found an ancient nest here. Immediately after, a frozen alien spaceship appeared before their eyes. They cut open the ship only to find that the owner of the ship was not the Whitespikes. Instead, it was aliens who had already turned into mummies. They most likely crashed accidentally, and these Whitespikes might just be the pets of the aliens. Without delay, the team began injecting toxin into the Whitespike embryos. After a painful roar, the toxin indeed worked. Unexpectedly, other Whitespikes were awakened by the sound. Then they broke out of their shells, one after another. At this time, they found the entire ship was filled with these terrifying monsters. This was an endless task. The only way was to blow up the ship. To detonate the bomb, a teammate finally died with the ship under the glacier. Unexpectedly, one female Whitespike escaped. It has a super strong breeding ability. Once it escapes, humanity is likely to face the end of the world ahead of time. Dan and his father hurriedly went to find it. Fortunately, they saw its trace in the snow opposite. The father hurriedly fired, and the Whitespike rushed forward. At the critical moment, Dan hit it while riding a motorcycle. The two fired crazily at the monster. Finally, they pushed it to the cliff. When they approached to check, they could not find the monster. But the next second, the Whitespike suddenly launched an attack from behind. Dan was hit in the thigh. Seeing the Whitespike pouncing on him, Dan pulled out the claw and pierced its eye. The father hurriedly added a blow. The Whitespike was instantly blinded in both eyes. Dan took the opportunity to jump behind it and slashed its throat hard. Then he took out the toxin and stuffed it into its mouth. After the toxin was bitten open by the Whitespike, it began to corrode its body, and then it fell off the cliff. It instantly turned into a pile of mud. Afterward, the explosion on the glacier caught the attention of the officials. They will reorganize some elite troops to go and confirm and eliminate the unknown alien threat. Unexpectedly, even the pets of aliens can make our world restless. How should humans fight back when the real aliens arrive? I will leave this problem of saving the world to you first. I have to hurry to write the next script. The next episode will be even more exciting.